A black man cruising in a luxury car catches the attention of two police officers on patrol. Their instincts tell them something is off. How can someone like him afford a car like this? With suspicion rising, they flash their lights and signal him to pull over. The driver calmly complies, rolling down his window as the officers approach. License and registration, one officer demands, his tone firm. The man stays composed, reaching for his wallet without hesitation. The officers exchange glances. Something about him seems different. He's not nervous. He's not defensive. Instead, there's a quiet confidence in the way he moves. Then, as they examine his ID, everything changes. Their eyes widen in shock. The man they assumed was just another suspect is, in fact, a high-profile prosecutor, one they'd likely heard of before, and in that moment, the tension shifts. But the question remains, how will they handle it now? The officer holding the ID hesitates, his grip tightening slightly. He glances at his partner, who's already noticed the shift in energy. The name on the license is one they recognize, a prosecutor known for taking on big cases, some involving law enforcement itself. Suddenly, the routine stop doesn't feel so routine anymore. The man in the car watches them carefully, his expression unreadable. He's been in enough courtrooms to know what's going through their minds. Do they double down, act like nothing has changed, or do they acknowledge their mistake? A few seconds pass, but they feel longer. The officer clears his throat. "Mr. Carter, is this your vehicle?" The question feels unnecessary, but it's clear they're scrambling, trying to regain control of the situation. Mr. Carter nods slowly. It is. His voice is calm, steady. He doesn't need to say more. The real question now is, what happens next? The officer shifts uncomfortably, still holding the ID. His partner glances at the luxury car, then back at Mr. Carter, as if trying to piece together a narrative that makes sense. A prosecutor driving a car like this, it's not what they expected. Mr. Carter stays quiet, letting the moment stretch. He's seen this before, the hesitation, the uncertainty. He knows they're questioning their own instincts, wondering if they just made a serious mistake. But he also knows that how they choose to handle it will say more about them than about him. The officer finally speaks. "We had a report of a vehicle matching this description acting suspiciously in the area." His voice lacks the confidence he had earlier. It's an excuse, and everyone knows it. Mr. Carter raises an eyebrow. "Is that so?" His tone is polite, but there's an edge to it. The officers shift again, exchanging a look. The tension lingers, because now it's not just about the traffic stop. It's about what this moment truly represents. The air feels heavier now, the silence stretching between them. Mr. Carter watches the officers closely, reading every shift in their posture, every flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. He's seen this play out before, but usually from the other side of the courtroom. Tonight, he's the one being judged. The officer holding his ID clears his throat, glancing at his partner again, as if looking for reassurance. "Do you mind stepping out of the vehicle?" he finally says. The words hang in the air, careful and measured. It's not a demand, but it's not exactly a request either. Mr. Carter exhales slowly, then pushes open the door. He moves deliberately, not because he's nervous, but because he understands the weight of the moment. As he steps out, the glow of the streetlights catches the shine of his watch, his tailored suit. He looks exactly like what he is, a man who belongs in this car, in this city, in this moment. But do they see that? Or are they still searching for something else? The officers exchange another look, their grip tightening on their belts. The tension is at its peak. Now, every choice they make will define what happens next. Mr. Carter stands tall, his gaze steady as the officers size him up. The street is quiet, but the weight of the moment is deafening. One officer finally speaks. "Mind telling us where you're headed tonight?" His voice is calmer now, but there's something else beneath it. Hesitation, maybe even doubt. Mr. Carter crosses his arms. "I don't see how that's relevant." His words are measured, deliberate. He knows his rights. More importantly, He knows they know them too. Then, just as the tension reaches its peak, a voice crackles over the officers' radios. Unit 12, stand by, do not detain. The subject is confirmed. The officers freeze. Mr. Carter watches as their faces shift, processing the message. Confirmed? By who? He doesn't move, doesn't say a word, but inside he knows. Someone higher up just intervened. The officers exchange a look, their confidence shaken. This isn't just a routine stop anymore. It never was. But now there's another layer to the mystery. Who made that call? And why were they watching? The officers stiffen, exchanging uneasy glances. The radio message wasn't meant for Mr. Carter, but he caught every word. He watches them, waiting to see how they'll respond now that they know someone higher up is paying attention. The officer holding his ID clears his throat and forces a nod. Looks like everything checks out, he says, his voice carefully neutral. He hands back the license, but there's no apology, no acknowledgement of the real reason for the stop. Just an attempt to move past it, as if nothing happened. Mr. Carter takes his ID and slides it back into his wallet. Is that all? His tone is calm, but there's an unmistakable weight behind his words. The officers hesitate, then step back. You're free to go, one of them says. But just as Mr. Carter turns to leave, another car pulls up, sleek, black, government plates. A man in a dark suit steps out, his expression unreadable. Mr. Carter, he says, nodding slightly. We need to talk. The officers freeze, their tension shifting from Mr. Carter to the unexpected arrival. Mr. Carter studies the man for a long moment, then exhales, a knowing look in his eyes. This wasn't just a traffic stop, it was something bigger. And now he's about to find out exactly what. Mr. Carter studies the man in the suit, then glances at the officers, who suddenly look unsure of themselves. Whatever this is, it's bigger than a traffic stop. With a small nod, he steps toward the black car. The man opens the door, waiting for him to get in. We've been watching, he says quietly. There's something you need to know. Mr. Carter hesitates for just a moment, then slides into the passenger seat. The door shuts with a firm click. The officers remain frozen, left in the wake of something they don't understand. As the car pulls away, Mr. Carter gazes out the window, the city lights blurring past. He doesn't know exactly what's coming next, but one thing is clear. Tonight was never about a traffic stop. It was a test, a message. And now he's part of something much bigger than he ever expected.